Hey there, welcome to the Healthy Church Staff Podcast. My name is Todd Rhodes. I'm one of the co-founders over at chemistrystaffing.com. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm not sure how you found us today, but we are here every day, Monday through Friday, for 5 to 10 minutes of hopefully mostly encouraging news specifically and input specifically for church staff and pastors across the United States. Today we're going to look at 7 trends to watch out for in the Big C church. And I'm going to have to move through these fairly quickly here because we only have a very limited time. But let me just talk on some of these. Some I'll have a little bit more to say than others. This came from an article that I thought was really interesting. So here are 7 kind of big things to watch out for, maybe trends that are happening, things that we're in the middle of, or things to watch out for in 2024 in the Big C church. The first is what the authors of the article call mainline malaise. And what they're talking about is the noticeable decline in both attendance and influence among traditional mainline denominations. And we're seeing a lot of, not just in mainline churches, but we're definitely seeing in mainline churches, but in evangelical denominations, there's a lot of shakeup. There's been more new denominations, more groups of churches in the past, I would say 5 years than what I've seen in the past 20 or 25 years. Denominations that are breaking up. We saw this with the United Methodist Church. A lot of denominations that are in turmoil and internal struggles right now with the Southern Baptist Convention, for one. We've seen other denominations make some huge decisions on things like gender issues in the past couple of years that are creating a lot of fallout, a lot of instability, a lot of sometimes just discouraging people that are in leadership, sometimes resentment even with people in leadership. I talk with a lot of candidates every day, and some people just feel like because of all the changes that they don't really have a home anymore. And that's a little disheartening. So that's one of the things I think it's going to continue to happen. I think it's going to take another 5 years, quite honestly, and probably even beyond that for some of this malaise to tone down. And I think you're going to find smaller denominations. I think you're going to see new kind of splinters of denominations where people of like-mindedness will search each other out and join arms together. So that's trend number 1. Trend number 2 is church finances. And contrary to popular belief, the church, for the most part, is not on the brink of bankruptcy. We've gone through a really tough 4 years, and as surprising as it sounds, the collection plate is not as sparse as you might think it is. Attendance overall still is down 4 years after the pandemic. Matter of fact, it was 4 years last week that the pandemic shut everything down. And I was one that thought this is really going to hurt the church, not only attendance-wise, and it has, but it's going to hurt the church financially. And it has to some degree, but things are not as gloomy and doomy as what I thought they would be for sure. And most churches are actually doing pretty good. They've adjusted pretty well. So I think finances are going to continue to be stable. And for those churches that are really on mission and about outreach and growth, I think the future is actually pretty bright. It's been a tough 4 years just financially, not just in the church, but also just with the economy and everything that's happened in the past 4 years. It feels to me like things are in a good spot right now, or at least getting better. Let's see, trend number 3. We've got 7 of them. Or actually, I see 8 here. I think I only said 7. We'll give you a bonus one today. Number 3 is to kind of look at the small church appeal. And I think there's a growing recognition that smaller churches have a unique appeal. I've heard for the last 5 to 10 years that the megachurch is done, it's over. Megachurches are not sustainable. And I think that they are. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of large churches. I think we're going to see a lot of churches grow to be really large. But I think there's going to also be this continuing growth of small churches, house churches, cell churches, small group churches, I think those appeal to a lot of people, and I think they're becoming more accepted. Most churches in America are small anyway, where I think maybe you may disagree. I would love to hear. Send me an email at podcast@chemistrystaffing.com. I think churches may get smaller and may get larger in the next 5 to 10 years. And by that, there's going to be a ton of small churches and there's going to be a good number of large churches. I think the medium-sized church is going to be the church that, if we see a shrinkage of those size churches, that may be the case. Maybe the 300 to 800 church might be less. That's just a theory on my part, but we'll see. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4, trends to watch. This is fun. Lay leaders. A lot of lay leaders are taking up leadership roles within the church, expanding their roles. Many churches, again, with the small church in particular, are finding that they can't afford a full-time pastor. So there's either a part-time or a bivo or even I've heard trivocational pastor now. And some churches, honestly, are just going to go to, hey, we've got 2 or 3 elders. We've got 2 or 3 really good lay leaders that can lead our church. So today's church, and even smaller churches, it's not going to be a solo pastor. It's not going to be a one-man show. It's really going to be transforming more to a diverse ensemble of dedicated believers in a local body that step up and lead. And I think that's a healthy thing in many instances. So that's number 4. Okay, here we go. Number 5. We're already running out of time. I should have made this 2 episodes, but I'll keep going. I'll talk really fast. Let's speak about a little bit about the rise of the de-church generation. And those, by de-church, what I'm talking about is people that have been a part of a church but are no longer active. And I think we have seen this grow immensely. People that still consider themselves Jesus followers, people that still consider themselves living a Christian life, but maybe never made it back into a local church. Maybe they're watching online. Maybe they're in one of those non-traditional kind of house church movements, or in a small group, an active small group that's maybe attached to a church, but they don't attend on the weekend. And this is a real thing. And those that once filled the pews or the rows on Sunday, not everyone has returned. And guess what? If they haven't returned at this point, it's going to be really hard to get them back. So I think that's going to continue to be for the de-church generation. And we have to, as a church, as a Big C church, we need to figure out what to do with that. All right, number 6, reflecting on the changing aspects of Christian education. We talked a little bit about this earlier this week when we talked about training up leaders, but discipleship in many churches is broken. Our theological education system in the country is broken in some places. And we just need to find ways at the local church level to disciple people. And this starts with kids. I've heard many churches putting a lot more emphasis on family ministry, and I think that's wise, man. We got to start discipling early, but we need to continue to do it and train people all along. So Christian education in the church and Christian education, theological education, is changing, and that's something to watch this year, and hopefully we can right this ship when it comes to education and discipleship. Speaking of that, number 7 is the faith formation or the discipleship. And we're really facing a pressing need for engaging approaches to discipleship and faith formation. And what used to happen in a classroom a lot of times now is happening in living rooms and small groups. And that's really where a lot of the growth has taken place. It seems to have shifted, and I think that's going to continue to shift. Okay, so those are the 7. We've got one more. And that's just simply, we need to, it's a summary point. We really just need to embrace change. A lot of times, change is God's tool for growth, and we need to empower people in our churches. If you're a senior pastor, you need to empower your staff to encourage some of this change, to discuss these 7 things that are changing and see how they're changing in your own local body, because your body is going to be different than everybody else's. But rethink how these things are going to affect your church and really attack them head on. If finances are an issue, that's something you need to attack this year. If discipleship's an issue, maybe you need to talk about that. Maybe you need to mobilize lay leaders in your church, or just figure out how to deal with kind of the de-churched generation in your town, or the people that used to come to your church that don't anymore, that still love Jesus and don't hate your church, but they're just not coming. How do you connect with them? Pick one or two of these this year, because it's going to be a big year to address some of these 7 trends that we're seeing in the church. All right, I apologize. We went long. Tomorrow I'll try and make it short. Let's see what we're talking about tomorrow on the podcast. We're going to talk about staffing. It's one of my favorite things. It's what I do all day, every day. We're going to talk about it's really a warning, not every potential staff member is as good as they appear. We'll talk about that tomorrow on the Healthy Church Staff Podcast. Hope you'll join us.